Hello, everyone. So just before we begin this year's Halloween Scary Story collection, wanted to give a very quick content warning for insects, blood, leeches, violence, death, the concept of being swallowed, zombies, typical body horror. Um, Please be aware that these are user-submitted horror stories. Um, we do our best to vet them, but we don't know everyone's personal mileage here, so if one of the stories is pulling out something that is potentially triggering to you, uh, skip over it or just hop on out. It is completely okay. Um, just letting you know that this is a scary story collection, so please be advised.
I think we're gonna be able to put timestamps in the description. Also, this is not B's fault, but there is also content warning for thalassophobia or general fear of the ocean.
Yes. Okay. With that said, we can get started. Well, I believe it's working, Doctor.
Oh, good. It's a piece of technology that actually works. What do you know?
Isn't that supposed to be your job to make sure that the technology in this facility works?
Actually, no. It's my job to make stuff go boom.
Well, clearly you are earning that paycheck. Well, the good news is the dormant podcast angle just actually worked out for us.
Why, Wasp? Whatever do you mean? We are just two friends recording a podcast,
Right,
as
yes, of
friends
course.
do.
Of course. Because everyone feels that what they need to say is incredibly important in this day and age.
I mean, maybe not everyone, but what you and I have to say is definitely important. Most of the time.
Most of the time.
Except for when you talk about safety regulations.
Yes, but company policy dictates I must. Look, I'm down to set fire to lawn gnomes all day long, but
Just roast and toast little motherfuckers, and then we can just go.
okay. Well, I suppose the audience deserves to know what we're doing here.
Okay. Okay. They can have a little bit as a treat.
Do you
I'm
want to
being
do the
nice. I'm feeling generous today.
Well, it is your day.
It is.
Why you were chosen to do this operation is beyond me.
Oh, because my boss didn't want to do it and foisted the responsibility onto me.
Because you are the most charismatic member of Orpheus, of course.
Fuck you, I very much am. If you're a chemist who likes to hear about different chemicals that can rot through your skin and explode.
So clearly, this podcast has an all ages rating.
I mean, I swore pretty profusely in the first 10 seconds, so no. I got rid of all the kids for you. That's me. I did a good job. You can thank me.
Right. Well, now that that's taken care of, we probably should get to what we were supposed to at this point.
Yeah, probably. I don't want to stay here forever. There are things to do.
Dare I ask what you are doing?
You probably don't want to know.
I'll probably end up having to ingest it at some point. So, you know what? Fair enough.
Well, it's surprise is the spice of life. If everything was just the same, you'd be bored. I help keep life interesting.
Mhm.
It's my little gift from me to you.
This is why you are not invited to my Christmas parties.
Christmas is for losers anyway. It's a pagan's holiday.
Anyway, welcome to the Organization for Research on the Paranormal, Hyperdimensional, Extraterrestrial, and Otherwise Strange, otherwise known as Orpheus.
We do not have any liars before anyone asks.
I think there's one sitting in this call right now, actually.
Not that kind. Oh my god. No culture anymore. Anyway.
So, We are here on the behest of a long defunct tabletop podcast. Is that what I heard from the office when we got this position?
Yeah, we kind of hacked into it and we're just kind of putting it there.
Password security is very important, kids.
Don't have your password be password 1234. Otherwise, kind of sort of governmental organizations may post crazy shit on your YouTube channel for you.
Or in this case, help you out by keeping up a yearly tradition of Scary Story Night.
Well, that too. We're very helpful people.
Yes, of course.
As you can tell.
Mm-hmm. So, if I recall correctly, users from this community have submitted horror stories that will be put out to this audience tonight.
Yep. That's what's happening. 100%.
And you said there were no liars on this call.
Again, Lyre. It's a musical instrument. Shh.
Anyway, the first tale we have tonight is a classic.
Yes. It is definitely a classic.
If you've been through 10th grade English, you've heard The Raven.
Yeah, I mean, if your teacher's any fun, anyway.
True. Anyway, well, I guess we gave it away, so enjoy.
Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered weak and weary over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as if someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, "tapping at my chamber door, only this and nothing more." Distinctly I remember it was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow, vainly I had sought to borrow from the books a crease of sorrow, sorrow for the lost Lenore, for the rare and radiant maiden who the angels name Lenore, nameless here forevermore. And the silken, sad, uncertain rustling of each purple curtain thrilled me, filled me with fantastic terrors never felt before. So that now, to still my beating of my heart, I stood repeating, "'Tis some visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door? Some late visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door? This is it, and nothing more." "Sir," I said, "or madam, truly your forgiveness I implore, but the fact I was napping, and so gently you came rapping, and so faintly you came tapping at my chamber door, that I scarce was sure I heard you." Here I opened wide the door. Darkness there, and nothing more. Deep into darkness peering, long I stood there, wondering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortal ever dared to dream before. But the silence was unbroken, and the stillness gave no token, and the only word there spoken was the whispered word, "Lenore?" This I whispered, and an echo murmured back the word, "Lenore." Merely this, and nothing more. Back into the chamber turning, all my soul within me burning, soon again I heard a tapping somewhat louder than before. "Surely," I said, "surely that is something at my window lattice. Let me see then what thereat is, and this mystery explore. Let my heart be still a moment, and this mystery explore. 'Tis the wind, and nothing more." Open here I flung the shutter, when, with many a flirt and flutter, in stepped a stately raven of the saintly days of yore. Not least obeisance made he, not a minute stopped or stayed he, but with mine of lord or lady perched above my chamber door, perched upon a bust of Pallas just above my chamber door, perched and sat and nothing more. Then this ebony bird beguiling my fancy into smiling, by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore. "Thou thy crest be shorn and shaven, thou," I said, "art sure no craven, ghastly, grim, and ancient raven, wandering in from nightly shore. Tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's Plutonian shore." Quoth the raven, "Nevermore." Much I marvelled this ungainly fowl to hear discourse so plainly, though its answer little meaning, little relevancy bore. For we cannot help agreeing that no living human being ever yet was blessed with seeing, above his chamber door, bird or beast upon sculpted bust above his chamber door, was such a name as Nevermore. But the raven, sitting lonely on the placid bust, spoke only that one word, as if his soul in that one word he did outpour. Nothing further than he uttered, not a feather then he fluttered, till I scarcely more than muttered, Other friends have flown before? On the morrow he will leave me, as my hopes have flown before me. Then the bird said, Nevermore. Startled by the stillness broken by a reply so aptly spoken, Doubtless, I said, what it utters is only stock and store, caught from some unhappy master whose unmerciful disaster followed faster and followed faster, till his songs one burden bore, till the dirges of his hope that melancholy burden bore, of nevermore. But the raven still beguiling all my fancy into smiling, straight I wheeled a cushioned seat in front of bird and bust and door. Then upon the velvet sinking I betook myself to linking fancy unto fancy, thinking of what this ominous bird of yore, what this grim, ungainly, ghastly, gaunt and ominous bird of yore meant in croaking, Nevermore. This I sat engaged in guessing, but no syllable expressing to the fowl whose fiery eyes now burned into my bosom's core. This and more I sat divining, with my head at ease reclining on a cushion's velvet lining that the lamplight glowed o'er, but whose violet lining with the lamplight glowed over. She shall press, nevermore. Then methought the air grew denser, perfumed from an unseen censer, spun by seraphim whose footfalls tinkered on the tufted floor. Wretch, I cried, thy God hath lent thee, by these angels he hath sent thee, respite, and nipeth from thy memories of Lenore. Quaff the kind nipeth, and forget this lost Lenore. Quoth the raven, Nevermore. Prophet, I said, thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, whether tempter sent or whether tempest tossed thee here ashore, desolate, yet all undaunted, on this desert land enchanted, on his home by horror haunted, tell me truly, I implore, is there balm in Gilead? Tell me, I implore. Quoth the raven, Nevermore. Prophet, I said, thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, by that heaven that bends above us, by the God we both adore. Tell this soul with sorrow laden, if within the distant Eden it shall clasp a sainted maiden who the angels name Lenore, clasp a rare and radiant maiden whose the angels name Lenore. Quoth the raven, Nevermore. Be that word our sign of parting, bird or fiend, I shrieked up starting, get thee back into the tempest in the night's Plutonian shore. Leave no black plume as a token of that lie thy soul hath spoken. Leave my loneliness unbroken. Quit thy bust above my door. Take thy beak out my heart, and thy form off my door. Quoth the raven, Nevermore. And the raven, never flitting, still is sitting on a pallid bust of Pallas just above my chamber door. And his eyes have all the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming, and the lamplight o'er him streaming throws his shadow on the floor. And my soul from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor shall be lifted nevermore.
Hey, do you think they're gone?
Probably.
I mean,
It was 7 minutes of 10th grade English flashing back into their minds. They're probably done.
I mean, some people like the Raven, but, most of them have clicked off the video by now. We're good. We're fine.
I would have preferred casting of Amontillado, but that's just me.
It is a classic. I think it's also longer. And also not a poem.
That's true.
Anyway,
I mean, yes, so, now that we are here, If you've stuck around with us this long, it's because you know what we're actually doing tonight.
We're making recordings of some of the case files our field reporters have
Correct.
have handed in.
Correct. We've given them a autumnal initiative, and we are finally releasing their hard work.
Yeah, they deserve to get some recognition. I mean, we don't pay them or anything, so
No,
it's
no.
it's payment by exposure.
Which is obviously totally valid if that is how our higher ups are also getting paid.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we don't have a super rich boss either, so everyone's
No.
just paid in exposure.
So, now that we are cat out the bag, as you will, I mean, technically speaking, a talking raven is pretty anomalous.
Eh, well, maybe the man is more the monster, maybe.
I suppose, but like, we couldn't just hold a man in a cage cell. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna take that back. I know you would.
I would 100%. 100%.
If they were
Put a
showing a
man
novel.
put a
If
man in a cage because by telling him that there's wine in the end of it and then lock the key.
if they were showing anomalous tendencies, and only if they were showing anomalous tendencies, of course.
Oh, of course. Only people with anomalous tendencies would go into a dark cell after a cask of wine. I mean, really.
So our intern.
You deserve it at that point.
What have you done to Hops?
I haven't done anything to Hops. Why are you being like this?
Anyway, our next story is one of our users submitted field reports that was converted into a piece of short fiction, which really does help.
I mean, it makes it more fanciful. I don't know if it really hammers down the hard facts. We are trying to study, monsters or mystical creatures here.
This is true, but also, if we are publishing them openly like this, it is best to have more than one that gets potential government agencies off of our back.
Government agencies with acronyms that shall not be named.
Of course.
If you
That
name
would just,
them, they look at you through your camera.
then you're just asking for it, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
Ah, another beautiful day, he exclaimed outwardly, grinning to himself as he revealed his genius humor to the company that was present, trapped in this grey world covered by darkness. Silence. Of course, they wouldn't appreciate a good joke, too glum to even crack a smile. Although he couldn't see their lips moving, the faint trickle of tears that squeezed out of their eyes, or the gentle convulsing of silent sobs, he could almost feel their misery. Work. Too silent to work, he mused to himself as his pale, spindly fingers tapped his chin, the pitch trailing from his empty sockets and soaked cloth. He stopped replacing the blindfold after a few months. There wasn't any point, it just became saturated with tar, and he'd have to replace it again and again. Instead, he kept the tatters of the blindfold soaked with pitch covering what was once his eyes, the dark liquid trailing down his gaunt cheeks like black tears. But he didn't mind. Others may see a graying, lightless, and depressed land filled with mountains of ash and spires of dull rock beholding the death of hope, joy, and freedom. What they failed to see with their puny eyes were delicious wisping curls of white, souls long trapped to this land with gluttonous shadows that hungered for more. He stretched his lanky arms outwards, most of his muscles atrophied away, leaving pale skin and black veins. What to start with? Hungarian dance number 5? He began pacing, his pale, bare feet leaving no sound against the dark stone beneath him, his black leathery wings tucked inwards towards his shoulder blades. No, too graceful, too many ups and downs. Needs more of a slow build-up. He continued to pace, muttering to himself as he passed by the rotting and ramshackle grand piano with rotten hands strewn about it a few paces from a throne made of bleached bones. He chuckled to himself. He did enjoy making the dialogue, even if there were no guests present, but this time there was, which seemed to make conversation, as boringly one-sided as it was, more alluring. This dialogue was something he learned that helped fill this grey, empty world with sound, but dialogue itself was never enough. He despised the quiet, gentle sound of wind echoing like a distant scream upon the mountains. It was old to him and didn't make a good conversational partner. Music was the only thing that seemed to be new and interesting. What do you think? Flight of the Bumblebee? That's always a good one, he mused, turning to face one of the bleached skulls that was embedded into his throne of bones. You're right. Too high energy. He grinned to himself, his company again not partaking in his joke. But with a clap, he turned around. That's it! In the Hall of the Mountain King. And with his revelation, he muttered a few arcane incantations, his spindly fingers meticulously scribing mandalas that floated in the air composed of a sickly green energy, slowly growing more and more complex. At one point in his life, these were complex mathematical formulas, a type of necromancy that took years to master, but that was before. Within just a moment, the glyph was completed, and the hands among the piano breathed in life once more, and began to run their barely attached fingers across the ivory keys yet again. He sighed with relief and grinned as the music began to fill the air. Now we can get to work. And just like that, he was lost in the music, humming to the tune, tapping his feet, and his movement beginning to match the tempo of the piece. His fingers wove malachite strings of a demonic language and archaic symbiology to create a beautiful yet grisly web of the arcane, the glyph shimmering in a sickly light suspended, looking almost as if the complex ties resembled the relation between bones and flesh. As the tempo increased, so did his speed, finding himself falling into the song, his fingers weaving faster and faster. The shadows underneath him rippled in excitement as his sharp fingernails etched unholy symbols and an archaic language upon the foreheads of his company, ignoring the trickles of blood that dripped down their faces as he made his careful slashes in the tempo of the song. The ones that were still lively squirmed as this devilish magic was placed upon them, the panic apparent in their eyes, unknowing of what was to come as their blood lifted from the sigils and began pulsing in that malachite light. But he was blissfully unaware of their petty emotions. Lost in the Hall of the Mountain King, he began to spin, to dance, his fingers mocking that of the rotten ones on the piano, becoming lost within the tone of the ivory keys, the music filling him with exhilaration. Spinning and dancing, the piece reaching its highest crescendo, the excitement palpable in the air, and he could not ignore it as his wings suddenly unfurled and splayed themselves outward in a display of pure elation. But the familiar sound of ivory keys, howling wind, and humming was interrupted by a heavy plop on the floor, one that was not in tune with the piece, followed by a muffled scream. He let out an unsteady sigh as the blood of one of his guests dribbled down the side of his right wing, raising his shivering hand as the music came to a stop. It was silent once more, less for the sound of the quiet whimpering and the severed head rolling unevenly upon the rock. He grit his teeth. His voice quivered and held deep frustration within it. Well, now the true crescendo is simply ruined. And with a violent tug, he pulled the malachite string, unraveling the grisly skeleton made of demonic runes and ripping away the lives of his company in an instant, their blood splattering upon the grey walk. And I was making such progress, he sighed, his temperament becoming more even. He was just disappointed now. Friends, he said, gesturing to the hands upon the piano, Moonlight Sonata. The shadows will feast once more. And with a melancholy sigh, he sat upon his throne of broken bones and destroyed hopes as the rotted hands began to play once more. The trail of pitch dribbled down his cheeks as he tapped his finger on the bones of the chair, thinking of what song he should listen to next.
Well, that is another one publicly leaked. I believe this next one is actually rather historical, interestingly enough.
Historical records are always very interesting. There's an importance in tradition there.
Yes, this is true. It does help that this is a French creature, so you might be actually able to pronounce it.
That's true. But fuck you.
Fair enough.
I outrank you.
Yes, I'm aware that I am directly under you.
Yes, because I never let you forget it.
I believe the amount of ingested chemicals probably would never let me forget it.
Again, you said you wanted spicy food. That's definitely spice. Just
Yeah.
not in the traditional sense.
True, I suppose. However, when I ask for spicy food, I ask for a tingling sensation on my tongue, not to go to the hospital to get my stomach pumped 8 times.
I mean, to be fair, I think ingesting hydrochloric acid would also make your tongue tingle. I think.
We should probably not talk about that while we are on air.
I mean, if you accidentally poison your friends, then it's okay. Then no one gets mad at you.
Yes, obviously.
Of course. It's all an accident, of course.
Of course.
In
There was-
Minecraft, as the kids say.
Dr. Dusk, the image of you playing Minecraft brings me more pain than anything else.
Yeah, I mean, it's an old game. Like, I was around when it was made. Like, what's so strange?
Let's just move on to the next story.
Alright then. Fine. We'll have it your way.
This is Drew McLean of Agents of Damned podcast, and I will be doing a dramatic reading of Beast of Gévaudan by Powerwolf. Beast of Gévaudan, feared no sword and feared no gun, sent from heaven, the seventh of creatures. Beast of Gévaudan, for the wrath of God to come, came to sanction the mass and the preachers. Hunted by hundreds and never to be caught, descent to wander, bring terror and take them all beyond. To the Father and the Son came the Beast of Gévaudan, Terminator, a traitor, half wolf and half machine. To the Prior and the Nun came the Beast of Gévaudan, a Redeemer, believer, all fatal, mad and mean, Beast of Gévaudan. Beast of Gévaudan, Christ the Force is on the run, meant to feast on the treason of liars. Beast of Gévaudan, bring up Nemesis undone, send the mass of profane to hell fire. Hunted by hundreds, all tempted to be fought, ascent like thunder to tear down the enemies of God. To the Father and the Son came the Beast of Gévaudan, Terminator, a traitor, half wolf and half machine. To the Prior and the Nun came the Beast of Gévaudan, a Redeemer, believer, all fatal, mad, and mean, Beast of Gévaudan. In the night no man can run from the Beast of Gévaudan, no escape from the fate of a martyr born in pain. When all prayers are said and done, tame the land of Gévaudan, and the curse of the Beast will remain. To the Father and the Son came the Beast of Gévaudan, Terminator, a traitor, half wolf and half machine. To the Prior and the Nun came the Beast of Gévaudan, a Redeemer, believer, all fatal, mad, and mean, Beast of Gévaudan.
The previous were excerpts from the Book of the Unknown Traveler, a book which has caused much controversy among academic circles. Even after all this time, scholars cannot decide if the work is fictional or autobiographical.
Doctor, are you alright?
What?
You were talking about a book, and we just completed the Beast of Shadon case file.
I was... Yeah. Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah. Yeah, okay. No, I'm good. It's all good.
Okay. Do we have anything we want to say leading into this next file?
File. Oh, right. Cause for concern. So, which field agent thought he was being funny when he wrote this report?
I'm not sure, but we can have them, and we can do what we must to ensure this does not happen again.
What do you think? Do you want an acid or a base in his next drink?
I was going to start with amnestics, but you know what? Go off.
Or we could just report it to.
We could report it to Delta, but Delta would go through HR.
Even I wouldn't want to foist Soul upon the wrath of HR. That's too cruel. Some things are too cruel to comprehend.
Especially to put on a field agent. They're not even being paid.
Yeah, well, we aren't being paid either. I feel like we established that.
True. But this person did think they were being funny for a Halloween video, so...
We'll get revenge. It'll be subtle. It will be poignant. I'll figure it out. Anyway.
I'm afraid to ask what you think revenge is, but we'll tell this next tale anyway.
It's best served cold. And so are many, many chemicals.
Item Orpheus 4339. Object Class Euclid. Special Containment Procedures. An investigation is ongoing into the causes of Orpheus 4339. Objects relevant to Incident 4339.1 are stored in Site 19. Evidence bag of holding 33A. Description: these huge creatures have 4 avian feet attached to a leonine body. A long feathered forked eel-like tail, black feathered wings. A crow's head adorned with 8 eyes. And a crow's beak flanked by beetle-like mandibles. There appears to be some magical effects including, but not limited to, darkness, fear, telepathy, and stealth. Exploration log. Opening statement. Exploratory mission 434. I was scheduled to test April 16th, 149 redacted DR. Due to the nature of redacted, it was a one-man team, Orpheus Professor Wells. He was informed of his assignment on April 12th, 149 redacted DR. For more information, see document mission 4339I. Equipment manifest. What follows is the personal log files gathered from the black box added to Professor Wells, with consent given May 8th, 149 redacted. Mission log. Professor Daniel. Day 0.
I found myself lost in a tropical paradise. The water was lapping gently against the white sand beaches, and the sounds of the trees swaying in the wind could be heard. I noticed right away that I could not hear the sound of any of the expected seabirds, just the distant sound of cawing crows. In fact, I could see some overhead already. I could also see that this was a volcanic isle. I started looking around my surroundings. The primary flora seemed to consist of hibiscus, heliconia, croton, elephant ears, a plant, polymorphus, and banyans. At this time, I was not sure if
Redacted.
had brought me to the rumored Forgotten Realms or not. I prepared my bestiary journal just in case. As I moved inland to climb the volcano for a better view of my surroundings, the volume and frequency of cause increased. Around me, there was very little to nothing to suggest other fauna existed. Below one banyan was found signs of broken deer ribs. Investigation showed no other signs of deer. I set up camp here for the night. Update. It would appear the distant echoing cawing gets significantly louder at night, and sometimes I swear I can hear it in my head. As well, as of dusk, I can see glowing red eyes watching me occasionally. Or at least I think I can. They are often out of the corner of my eye. I can also hear the flapping of wings, significantly larger than any known crows.
Mission log. Professor Daniel. Day 1.
Continuing my trek towards what I hoped would be the approximate center of the isle, I was able to see that I had maintained my heading to the volcano. I could also see swirling black clouds. I stopped to rest briefly, and was met with a cacophony of caws, as though they were signaling something else. With caution, I continued until I began my ascent of the volcano. I made it to the top and noticed two things simultaneously. One, the black clouds overhead were actually crows, and two, I could not see the bottom of the volcano, nor the light from it. In order to properly report on where I found myself, I used my
Redacted.
to descend the volcano from inside the mouth. I fell for well over 15 minutes, using
Redacted.
3 times. On the way down, I noticed many more crows, and they seemed to be getting much bigger. The bottom of the volcano was covered in an aura of darkness. No light of mine was piercing it. No light was escaping it. During my descent, I made periodic stops to collect feathers for the investigation. Glowing red and yellow eyes seemed to both appear and disappear from the corners of my vision. I have yet been able to ascertain if they were sparks from the lava I could hear in the distance or not. Stopping to add a bony beak to my evidence, my headlamp and flashlight both suddenly stopped working. What I could see was plumes of magma reflected off the brightest yellow eyes I had ever seen. I leapt back to escape it and twisted my ankle. Everything turned dark around me, except for the eerie glow of the flame beneath me. I pulled out a flare for visibility, and, within seconds of lighting it, before my eyes had even adjusted, it went dark. Not off, so much as so dim it seemed unreal. I held it until a phosphorus flame started burning my hand. I looked up and got my first observation of Orpheus 4339. 4 avian feet were dug into the volcanic rock. They held up its leonine body, which was encircled by an eel-like tail. Its body was engulfed by 2 massive black crow wings, currently stretched out. Its head was avian, but contained 4 sets of yellow, pupilless eyes, and a crow's beak with a set of beetle-like mandibles. There appeared to be many of Orpheus 4339, approximately 24 of them, to be seen. The one I was observing released a caw. But unlike other Orpheus 4339, I heard this one in my mind. Within seconds of its caw, Orpheus 4339 looked directly at me and spoke into my mind. We discussed
Redacted. Redacted. Apologies. The remainder of entry Orpheus 4339 has been redacted. Please see
www.dndteachy.com
in the future for the unredacted version. Thank you for your compliance.
And that is another one done. We are much closer to completion of this project.
Yeah, I mean, that one was even in, like, an actual field report. Amazing. Astounding. The name was a pun. But It was actually a field report. I am pleasantly shocked and amazed.
So does that mean we are not putting chemicals in this person's drink?
We're putting slightly less dangerous chemicals in this person's drink.
Do we know where they... You know what? I'm worried about her.
Don't worry about it. I'll get someone to give me the address.
This is why you use a VPN, kids.
We aren't even being sponsored by them. We're not important enough for that.
Not yet, anyway.
There's always room to hope.
If we ever get sponsored, it would be the first bit of income coming into the Orpheus Foundation.
Yep. Introducing Raid, Shadow Legends.
You know, I would stoop that low to eat.
Apparently they do actually pay well. Anyway. What's the next story? What? Story. Yes, they're stories. Never mind. Government agents. What's the next report?
I believe the next story comes from a... Is that a children's card game? You know what? I won't question it. Just roll the tape.
My dearest brother, if only because our parents never saw fit to give me another, better brother, which was very selfish of them, really. If they weren't interested in making more the slow way, they could have built me something. But as you are both the only brother I have, and the only person remotely clever enough to understand my genius, I suppose you will, regretfully, have to do. Things have been getting dreadfully dull here in Thraben. I begin to wish you were here. Not to make war against me as we did when we were children. Those days are properly behind us, and better left buried, which is not a thing I would say of very much, but to build new wonders for my darlings to set themselves against. I have very nearly exhausted the living resources of this once virile land, and for the life of me, I can't tell you where all the humans have gone. Certainly, a great many of them have died, but as those are still with me, in a slightly more pleasant form, it seems their fellows should have stayed as well, if only for the ridiculous histrionics and waving about of torches. Really, brother, I'd forgotten how much of the fun in this great game is in the unpredictability of the pieces. An army of the dead is a thing of beauty and a joy forever, but there's not much unpredictability in a battalion that follows the orders impeccably and without hesitation. I dream of something worthy of setting myself against. For all that you are, a slack-jowled abomination in the eyes of the watching moon, dear brother, I dream of you. Of any opponent worthy of the honor of my consideration, even of your putrid, pointless constructs of sinew and skin, formed from the flesh of good, honest zombies. I have called so many rats back from the grave. They dance on the rooftops of Thraben like the most gifted of ballet corps. And they never stop, not even when they leave their toes and tails behind, rotting away in ceaseless splendor. But what's the point when no one appreciates my efforts? I have achieved our greatest dream, absolute conquest, and found it to be more hollow than we could have ever imagined. Your loving sister, Gisa.
Gisa, if you're unhappy in Thraben, you have no one to blame but yourself and your horrible personality, which has made isolation your inevitability since we were children, as no one can tolerate your company for long while they still draw breath. I've always known you would only be truly happy among the dead. Well, you have your wish. If you find no joy in it, that is on your own head. Do not contact me again. Geralf. The plate shattered against the wall, sending shards of priceless antique porcelain scattering in all directions. Gisa shrieked, a banshee's wail drawn from the throat of a living woman, and picked up the matching teacup. From the pile of shards already heaped against the base of the wall, it was obvious to anyone who'd looked that she'd been at this for a while. Not that there was anyone left to look. The wreckage of her tantrum would be some archaeologist artifact of the siege of Thraben someday, when the living took back the city-turned-crypt from its unwanted new regent.
That filthy, talentless, worthless waste of a perfectly good skeleton.
Gisa shouted, hurling the teacup after its fellows. The sound it made when it shattered seemed to calm her somewhat, because she paused as she picked up the next plate, weighing it more carefully in her hand, like she was considering the angle of her throw. A casual observer, who didn't know any better, might have taken this pause as an opportunity to jump in and suggest she do something more soothing with her time, or stop smashing teacups and drink a relaxing cup of herbal tea instead. Sadly, everyone who left in what had been the main cathedral of Thraben, save for Gisa herself, was beyond such suggestions, being quite unmistakably dead. The ghoul caller had done the sensible thing after Liliana's zombies took the city, and Liliana herself moved on. She'd secured it. That meant eliminating as much of the remaining living population as she possibly could, since the living were notoriously self-interested and tended to object to being chewed on. Having no interest in being overthrown, imprisoned, or worse, watching her beloved dead put it back into the ground before she was done with them, Gisa had taken care of the threat. But the threat was also a source of raw material with which to expand her army, and not being, a stitcher like her blighted brother, may he be consumed by boils and burdens of the living flesh until he surrendered himself to the merciful embrace of death itself. She couldn't put her creatures back together once they'd reached a certain level of damage. Their flesh rotted much more slowly than it would have on the ground, without her borrowed vitality to sustain it, but it still rotted. Limbs dropped away, jaws loosened, teeth left their sockets. She could hold the city for now, while her legion was strong and her rule unquestioned. She couldn't hold it forever. Empress of the empty grave, and unchallenged Queen of Thraben, Gisa collapsed to the plush chair that served as her throne, dropped her chin onto her knuckles, and sulked. Outside the walls of Thraben, on the long, empty road between it and the last human-held city in Gisa's tenuous domain, now a smoldering husk occupied by the slowly gathering geists of the doomed and the dead, left to burn when they refused to rise, an army marched. And marched without hunger or exhaustion, without pause for rest. When a marcher fell, they were left in the mud, ground to paste beneath the feet of their fellows. Not a single one objected or complained. Those weaknesses were behind them now. At the head of their column rose a man with sunken cheeks and a still glorious mane of hair despite the rot and blood that caked it close to his skull. His steed was a once mighty war-horse, whose hide had been mostly peeled away by decay, leaving it a walking sculpture of muscle and bone. Every step flexed its flanks and caused Flex to drop away, wearing it down stride by stride. It carried its rider onward, single-minded in death, as nothing living could ever be, and that rider scanned the horizon, axe in hand, watching for signs of movement near the walls of Thraben. He could feel her even now, calling, calling, endlessly calling. He was not one of her mindless thralls, for all that he could name her as the architect of his second, better existence. He would have died a satiated man, happy with the story of his life, with the women he'd wooed and the works he had done, had she not spurned him so unfairly. He and Gisa were meant to be together. What truer proof could there be than the fact that when he died, he rose to the mere memory of her call? Still the man he was in life, still hale and handsome and ready to woo, ready to be wooed in return? He would seek her, he would find her, and he would take his rightful place at her side. Wilhelt the breathtaking and Gisa the glorious, figures worthy of the legend that would surely grow up around them, burying its roots in the fertile soil of their love. Before his own death and return, he would have said ghouls had no souls remaining, that whatever animated them was beyond human feeling. And true, they had always seemed unfeeling when he walked among the living, when they were monsters to stalk the night and terrorize the innocent. But now he knew the truth. Now that he walked on the other side of the grave, he'd finally seen the beautiful complexity that slumbered within the unbeating hearts of the dead. Every day, when his army took shelter from the worst of the sun, the smell of sun-baked decay was never going to win any prizes. He would close his eyes and dream his dead man's dreams of Gisa. Gisa, his purpose, his love. Gisa who would be his queen as soon as she accepted that his love was true and his suit sincere. At the head of the column of the dead, Wilhelt marched on Thraben, and silence followed behind, unbroken by the screams of men or the calls of carrion birds. When his army marched, none were left to live.
Dear Meat Mangler, I knew you were my inferior. I never guessed you could be so cruel. I played your stupid games. I followed your endless, pointless, insufferable rules. I was the best of sisters, the very best of all possible sisters, far finer than you deserved, and now you would abandon me to boredom and the dust? You cannot even send something horrible and pointless, cobbled together from a dozen beastly birds, to give me something to do with my time? I mourn and molder here, dear brother, and at times even weep the people of Thraben, the ones who survived, weaklings and cowards that they were, to run so before that arrogant girlfriend of yours, Liliana, or take up torches and swords and march against me, as they might have done in days of old. But alas, I know where the people of Thraben are located, and they are all here with me already, all sworn into my service. I could command them to lay siege to my battlements and threaten their fellows, but it would be little more than a shadow play, all the puppets tethered to my hand. I could release a few from my control, letting them turn feral and furious, but they would be quickly dismantled by the rest of my horde, and my subjects are good and obedient, and most importantly, mine. To sacrifice them so frivolously would be unkind in the extreme. I cannot do that to them, no matter how powerful the temptation. It would be unfair. See, I can even treat the dead in my dominion fairly, and you cannot do the same for your own once beloved sister, some brother you've turned out to be. No longer yours, Gisa.
Gisa, I'm gifted at my art, even as I admit you have a flair for your own. Our parents passed down good bones and good blood at the same time, and we would have to be fools, indeed, to have squandered both. As I know you've made use of our parents' bones against my strident objections, I must assume you're putting their blood to good use as well in your continued domination of Thraben. I admit that your quick thought in claiming the city and Liliana's abandoned thralls impressed me. I would have done the same in your location and possessed of your talents. But I am not jealous. My own work consumes my every waking moment. I'm honestly not sure how I've been able to carve free time out to answer your latest mewling missive. No, I will not come to save you from the fruits of your own machinations. No, I will not intervene with this disaster of your own making. You wanted this. In the common parlance, you dug your own grave, and now you get to rot in it. Geralf. Gisa stalked the balcony of the cathedral, circling the spire again and again, the wind whipping through her hair and tugging her clothes into barely noticed disarray. A few dead bats squeaked their adoration as she passed them, and she acknowledged their service with a waggle of her fingers. unable to take pleasure even in their leathery winged loyalty. Calling small rodents, even the flying kind, was child's work. Geralf would surely scoff if he saw them and asked in that smug, superior tone of his whether she didn't think she'd move beyond such childish pastimes. Yes. How she missed the sound of his droning arrogance, the way he stretched his vowels as if they couldn't stand in judgment by themselves, the way he thought he knew more than anyone else, no matter what the topic. She could have never admitted it to his face, and would have denied it to the grave. But she missed her brother. It was odd, being away from him this long for reasons other than one or both being locked away by small-minded fools who couldn't understand the power of the Decani genius. Dying in service of their family name was a privilege, not a right. People shouldn't react so poorly to the honor, especially since it wasn't like they stayed dead terribly long. Gisa stared at the cloudy night sky, as if daring to do something that would offend her more than her brother's latest missive. Then she paused. Someone was riding along the road in a Thraben. No one had come riding that road in months. It had been quite abandoned since Liliana's dead, now Gisa's dead, had taken the city, and none living dared its boundaries. But now someone was coming, light glinting off the weapon in their hand, and what looked to be a full legion of men marched behind them. Gisa squinted at the shapes moving along the road. No, not men. They moved as one, oddly organized, but without the smoothness of their living. Their feet rose and fell in herky-jerky rhythms of the dead. These were risen men, and that meant the figure at their head must be their ghoul caller. Her eyes narrowed. No one was going to claim her territory. No one was even going to get to challenge her for it. And it was something to do, which was delightful beyond all words. She whirled and ran for the stairs, descending into the depths of the cathedral, undead bats fluttering in her wake and squeaking at a register that even most of the dead couldn't hear. Wilhelt reached the gates of Thraben, closed and rusted, unattended by human hands for far longer than they should have been, and found Gisa already waiting there, her glorious hair unbound, her fine gown torn into the most artful and elegant of tatters. She must have done it to celebrate his arrival, for why would she have made herself so beautiful for any lesser man? Beautiful Gisa, he yelled, and his voice was still clear and strong despite the darkness of the grave. Surely that alone would tell her that he was no ordinary ghoul. How many of the risen could speak so clearly, could remember the name of the woman who they'd loved in life? None among his company could manage such a feat. At long last your loneliness is at an end, for I have come to join you. Gisa looked at him, those perfect lips curling into a slow smile, the perfect brow wrinkling in what seemed for all the world to be confusion. Finally, tilting her head to the side, she asked,
Do I know you?
Wilhelt stared at her. Of course you do, he replied. I am Wilhelt the Breathtaking, and I have come to take your breath away.
I'm still using my breath,
said Gisa. Wilhelt's stare became a scowl. We met in the wood. It was a glorious day, made all the more so by the combined radiance of our presence.
Oh,
said Gisa in sudden recognition.
Wilhelm, I do remember you. You were that pretty woodsman I met while I was searching that ancient barrow for new friends. You were less interesting than any of the dead things I'd found, and I left you to your trees. I have no real room for vanity in my life, not with Geralf so consumed by the need to swoon over his own genius.
When he didn't move, she raised one hand and waved languidly, like that might be enough to hurry him along. It didn't. He gaped at her, dead eyes disbelieving. I came all this way. You would spurn me a second time after everything I've done for you? I died for you. Well, that wasn't entirely true, but the falling tree that crushed him had certainly possessed a romantic air.
It didn't seem to stick, and you've risen without the benefit of a ghoul collar from the looks of it,
said Gisa, and Wilhelt was shocked to hear dismissal in her tone.
Sloppy work, if you ask me. Any fool can plant a bush. It takes a master to shape that bush into an elephant.
Wilhelt kept staring at her as she raised her hands and whistled, a long, low note that seemed to hook itself around the base of his spine and yank, like a hook sliding into a fish. He was faced with the sudden, near irresistible desire to lay down his axe and go to her, to surrender the fierceness of will that had called him from the grave, to raise an army of his own and go to her side, to be a thrall and not a commander, subject to the whims and whimsies of her desire. His arms trembled, muscles suddenly tired of holding his great weapon high. He trembled as well. with the force of resisting. He had come here to join her as an equal, not as a thrall, but in the eyes of Gisa Kakani, the dead could never be equal, could never be peers. Could be beloved, certainly, kept as pets that were kept, but could not be her home or comfort. He was not a possession. He was Wilhelt, dubbed the breathtaking by every woman who had ever beheld him, every woman save for one, and that was the only woman who could have possibly been good enough for him. He called his army forth, despite not being considered a ghoul caller in life, and they marched to his command. He would not yield. Gisa pulled. Wilhelm pulled back. Gisa yanked. Wilhelm nearly stumbled, his will yielding before he recovered his mental grip and yanked in answer, breaking the tie between them as Gisa's whistle died, choked off in her throat. She coughed, spitting out a few dissonant notes, then looked at him with narrowed eyes.
So, it's to be like this?
She asked. He snarled. I am no doll to be drawn into your games. Give me a chance, beautiful Gisa, and I will prove my peer in glorious undeath. Gisa's eyes narrowed.
Very well, then. I was getting bored anyway.
And she retreated back through the gates of Thraben, slamming them decisively behind her, leaving Wilhelt and his army standing in the front of the city, momentum broken, but mind still utterly his own. Gisa slammed the door and whirled to press herself against it, as if her narrow body would be the final barrier to keep that man and his legion from breaching the walls of her city. Imagine Wilhelm here, in Thraben, where he'd never once been invited to be, waltzing in as if he owned the place, and risen without aid as if that weren't so unutterably gauche. People died, becoming corpses. Ghoul callers pulled them back into the world, transforming them into ghouls, or butchers, like her brother, used science to imbue them with hideous, dishonest parodies of life, as if electricity and chemical connections could ever replace good old-fashioned necromancy. People didn't simply die and get back up again of their own accord. Or, well, they did. She knew perfectly well that they did, but they shouldn't. It was inappropriate. It was unnecessary. It was untidy. Yes, that was the word she wanted. Untidy. But welcome all the same, because it was something to do. Geralf might think he was the only opponent she could have, but she knew better. And this Wilhelm had managed something unlikely, and annoying enough that he might well present a decent challenge. There was nothing like the opportunity to test herself and her beloved toys against an opposing force, though she'd been waiting for something like this. When something clanged against the outside of the door, Gisa straightened, whistled her subjects back to her, and ran. Not that she was afraid of a dead man, oh no, not in the least. But he was in all his strength on the road before her city, while she was attended only by the few who had been close enough to join her without notice. If he came in his strength, he would meet her in all her glory, and they would see who was the superior in the dance of undeath. He would learn, as all others had learned before him, that those who underestimated Gisa Kakani did so at their peril. They rarely did anything else after that, unless she asked them to. The hooves of Wilheld's stallion battered against the rusted doors of Thraben with deep, ringing echoes as Wilheld urged the beast on, until the door crumbled between one blow and the next, and the city lay open before them. Wilheld urged his troops through the city opening, choosing wisely to ride at the center of the formation rather than up at the front. They needed him to direct them, and he couldn't do that if he couldn't see where he was going. Yes, that was absolutely the reason, and not the vague fear of what an angry ghoul caller could do when cornered in her own lair. He urged his army forward, and they, having no will of their own, went. He rode well shrouded in the decaying bodies of his fellows, and didn't notice the sky above him begin to darken. They passed under a stonework bridge, and when they rode back out on the other side, the sky stayed shadow-dark above them. Wilhelm glanced up. The swirling veil of bats and ravens, crows and vultures, opened rotting mouths, shrieking with rotted throats, and descended. Only the most powerful of ghoul callers can whistle the beasts from their burrows, call them out of their nests. But those who can tend to have a remarkable fondness for the swarm, the nest of rats or flock of bats that has fallen into their hands. Gisa, given the population of a city to bend to her designs, was no different. Undead, rotting birds dropped from the sky to lash their talons at Wilhelm and his men. Fruitlessly, they swatted their attackers away as Wilhelm shrieked, his face with his arms before roaring with fury and swinging his axe in a great arc, sundered birds falling like rain. He swung again and laughed as his subjects began plucking flying things out of the air and ripping them in two. And he rode on. They passed out of the city entrance and onto the broad avenue that had once marked the small but bustling shopping district. The stores stood empty, doors ajar, windows dark. Wilhild urged his men onward. They were halfway through the avenue when the dead surged out of the buildings to either side, hands raised, ready to catch, tear, and kill. Wilhild roared Gisa's name, brandishing his axe as the battle raged around him. His horse reared and struck, driving sharp bony hooves through brittle skulls.
You don't have to shout,
Said an irritated voice from behind the walkway above. Wilhild raised his head.
Come now, Wilhelm. It doesn't have to be like this,
She said.
Why not surrender them to the superior ghoul caller? It will be a better ending than the one they're meeting now.
Desperately, Wilhild glanced back to his men. They were fighting valiantly. But while he had an army, Gisa had a population. For every one his men destroyed, 3 more rushed in to take its place, still pouring endlessly from the broken stores. If this continued, they would lose. He turned back to Gisa. No, he snarled, I will prove to you that we can be more than toys.
But here you are, playing with your little soldiers.
Gisa sighed.
Very well. Farewell, Wilhelm.
Then she flounced away down the walk, not looking back as her soldiers surged forward. She was still beautiful. Wilhelm watched her go, wistful as he'd ever been, as Gisa's dead struggled with his own in a line, listless, brutal slugging match. They couldn't hope to win. He understood that now, but perhaps a triumph of arms and legs and severed heads wasn't the only way to Gisa's heart. Wilhelm reached under his breastplate and pulled out the letter he had carried next to his own unbeating heart since his resurrection. It had been written before his fingers stiffened beyond the formation of simple words, and was still very legible for a ghoul. Really, how could she help but be impressed by him? Turning to his men, he selected one of the least decayed, who looked reasonably spry, and thrust the letter in his direction. Go, he commanded. You are my gift to her. Run until she bids you otherwise. Only see that you've given her the letter before you give over your will. That man took the letter and ran, shuffling and stumbling, in the direction Gisa had gone. Gisa positioned herself dead center of the square, flexing her hands and breathing quickly. She shouldn't have been this excited by the idea of a fight with someone other than stupid Geralf. But she was. This Wilhelm might be nothing but a ghoul, but he'd still managed to raise an army of his own to come and face her. He was too clingy. She wasn't going to invite him to share any lair of hers anytime soon. But he was intriguing. She was willing to admit that. A single ghoul ran into the square, heading straight for her, an envelope clutched in his hand. She whistled and felt the hook of her song sink into his rotting mind, seizing him away from Wilhelm's clutches in an instant. She smiled as the boy walked more sedately to her side, now properly in her control, and plucked the envelope from his hand. Inside was a single sheet of paper. She blinked, reading it twice before she crumpled it into a ball and tossed it to the ground. Beautiful Gisa, I live for you, I love for you, I died for you, I rose for you. Everything I've done in my existence has been to earn your regard. Make me the happiest of men or ghouls, and be my queen. Wilhild. Wilhild, as if she would get his name wrong. If he mattered half as much as he thought he did. The presumption of the man to come to her territory, to deny her the ghouls that was so rightfully hers, and then to imply that she could be wrong about something as basic as a name. She resolved to destroy him. The invading army rode into the square, their handsome, rotting leader at the head. For the first time, he got down from his horse, striding forward with an axe in hand. Gisa. She rolled her eyes.
Yes, Wilhelm, I know my own name. This is your last chance. Surrender your ghouls and yourself to me, and I'll let you, well, not live. But you get the idea.
He glanced to the balled-up sheet of paper on the ground, and his face fell. No one has ever resisted my charms.
Sweet Wilhelm, there's a first time for everything.
She whistled, sharp and quick, and he felt his hold on his men seized again by that unseen force. He knew that was Gisa struggling to rip them away. Wilhelm roared and yanked back, delighted to see Gisa stumble, even if only a small bit. He was strong, see? He could make her listen. Then Gisa screamed, and all the bats in Thraben descended. It didn't seem possible that something as small as a bat could possess so many razor-sharp teeth or attack with such ferocity. For every one Wilhelm or his men slapped out of the air, 4 more surged forward, shrieking tiny shrieks and ripping at any exposed flesh. Even armor was no defense against an endless stream of biting, flying rodents whose own sense of self-preservation had been stripped away. In the end, with the shambling remnants of his army at his side, Wilhelt was forced to turn and flee, lest his second, presumably final life, end as abruptly as his first. Gisa picked herself out of the shattered glass covering the cathedral steps, screams of the dead still ringing in her ears, loud enough to almost obscure the soothing hammer of her heart. Geralf would never let her hear the end of it if she died before he did. Bits of broken corpse were scattered around the square, human and otherwise. A pair of undead ravens pecked at the eyes of Wilhelm's horse, fallen and decapitated, the head and eyes some distance from the rest. Wilhelm himself was gone. Gisa couldn't find a single piece of him. She looked around at the gore-strewn square and sighed. That was the end of this game, then. Well, there was always the next to resume. And wouldn't Geralf be so pleased to see her?
My dearest brother, I have concluded that you are lost without me, and need my loving, sisterly presence to give meaning to your wasted life. I am on my way to you now, and should be there inside of the Se'nnight. Have a room ready for me. I can't wait to see what you've been doing while I was occupied with ruling the city your useless girlfriend abandoned. Once more, your adoring sister, Gisa.
Gisa, what? No, I don't require your presence, which has never been loving and can only be called sisterly on the technicality that we are unfortunately related. You will only disrupt my research. Please, please, if you must leave Thraben, go anywhere else in the world. I beg. Anywhere but here. Most certainly not yours, Geralf. Are we supposed to have something specific to say about each of these pieces? Because I'm not a wordsmith.
I mean, there are a lot of reports here. We can just say this next set is very interesting, and yes, it's all good.
Great. I could go get some water.
You sound like you need it. Do you want a halls or a cough drop or something?
No, I'm fine. This is just my talking voice.
Damn.
What?
Raven must be really into the deep voices, huh?
I am in very close proximity to a flamethrower.
Say no more, say no more. Let's just roll the tapes, huh?
I will get back at you for this.
I'm sure. Roll the tape.
Log 1. Date is February 9th, 2031. New day, new containment.
Ew.
I am Dr. Maxwell, and I am joined by the insufferable Dr. River.
Insufferable, ah? You know, stick that recorder of yours straight up.
Okay, moving on. The containment we have today is SCP-3128.
Captured a couple days ago, and it's... well, it's certainly something.
Ugly is what it is. I've seen plenty of these things around here, but damn.
You have the information. Don't be shy. Tell the log about it.
The only thing we have written down about it is its appearance and some behaviors. Some of the locals say that it would stare at them while they hunted. Creepy. And one of these cases even said it stood on its hind legs. Looked like a tall tree, they said.
You're right when you said it looked ugly. Its appearance makes me uncomfortable.
What, you don't like a decaying deer body with plants sprouting from it?
You also have to look at it too.
Yeah, I do. I do. River, it's looking at us. Can it see us?
It's a one-way mirror, Max. No need to fret. Your little research room, on the other hand.
I need a new profession. Log 5, date is February 14th, 2031. I better be getting a raise for nothing happening.
Cry about it, Max.
Screw off, River. Nothing new to really report. Behaviors are the same as when the thing got here. Tomorrow we start running tests, so hopefully we make some progress. Log 15th, date is February 24th, 2031. Tests have been running smoothly. Sorry, I think I can hear, River in the other room. Hey, River!
What's up, stink boy?
Excuse me?
You're with the Rotten Corpse all day. It only makes sense to legally change your name now. Stink boy.
I hate you sometimes. Anyway, are you talking, like, at all?
Max, I'm in the office. You can't even hear me from here.
Can you see if there's anyone around me?
Mate, it's only you and that thing. You know there's no one else here. Are you good?
Yeah, I'm fine. Anyways, SCP-3128 appearance has slightly changed. I'm not sure if I'm seeing things or if it does this when it's stressed. And it really does smell in here. Log 28, date is March 9th, 2031. For the past 14 days, my tests have been interrupted, to say the least. I've been hearing this voice. At first I couldn't make it out, but now it's louder, closer. To be completely honest, I can't really tell. I know we're partners. I know I shouldn't keep this to myself. I know the consequences of secrecy in this job. But I feel like I'm learning more about this thing the louder it gets, and I can't worry River more than I already have. They'll have me pulled from this containment, and I don't want that. I don't want that.
Max? Everything okay?
Yeah, I'm good. Log 35. It's getting louder. I hear it everywhere. I know I haven't slept. I am tired and quite honestly delirious, but it's beautiful. I don't know what River is talking about, but this creature is magnificent. A deer fresh with life. Its flowers bloom so eloquently, so bright, so bright. It beckons me to stand with it, and it speaks. Come inside. It says, groom me. It says, take the fruit. Take the fruit. Take the fruit, and it's rather tempting. 5 days. I haven't left this room. I can't. What will happen if I take my eyes off of them? I can't let anything happen to them. I don't want to leave. I have to keep looking, keep watching, What was that? The door? I can't.
Max, what are you doing by the control panel?
What?
The door, Maxwell.
Oh. Yes, I'm sorry. Just wanted to walk around is all. Yes, that's it.
Max, are you?
I'm fine, River. I'm fine. Don't worry about me. I'm so hungry. I can't. I can't.
Max, what are you doing?
River, we're torturing this poor creature. They're suffering. I need to let them out.
What the hell are you on about?
Shut up. They are to be let free.
Max, don't.
At long last, we're to be together for the rest of time. And with your fruit, my fate is sealed. My hunger will be replenished. Delicious. The most amazing fruit by far. Such beauty, such wonder, such...
Max!
Help me.
So, Rooster, we're gonna be, paired up for, field research expedition?
Yep.
Yeah. Are you ready for that? Have you packed?
I'm always ready.
Have you packed?
What do you not get from I'm always ready?
You're always packed, I guess. Alright. We're gonna be out for a couple of days. If you're ready for several days travel already, we can go now. I've already packed. I've been prepared.
I mean, yeah, I'm ready too. I guess it's not that I'm always packed, but I am ready at all times, but I packed. Anyways, yeah, let's go.
Okay. I'm gonna just get some energy drinks before we go. Make sure the cooler's packed. Get some ice from there, because it's much better cold. Alright.
Hey, how many of those have you had today?
Enough.
That's not a number.
It's not like a number is necessary for our research.
It's necessary for my research.
Oh,
Tell me how many you've had. I just want to know how many you've had, because I swear, look, I'm not the best with numbers, but I think I've counted 3 in the last, 2 hours, if I'm not wrong.
Which is the daily allotment, which is why I'm fine right now. Let's go.
Okay, then.
Razor, did you get the tent all put up?
Sure thing, Pinnacle. Got it right here.
Do not refer to me as Pinnacle. I have spent a very long time to get my doctorate. I will be referred to as Dr. Pinnacle only.
Whatever you say, Doc.
Thank you. Alright. You read through the report, right?
Yes. Well, yeah, as much as I could get through it.
Oh, okay.
Look, I'm not the researcher here. I'm just here to do the big plow with the guns, you know?
Alright.
With the punch and the pows and the fighting. Don't you worry. You do you do the research you gotta do. I'll be here. I got your back, Doc.
Thank you. But as you may or may not have read in the report, there are large monsters in this area, and it might not be a good idea to engage with them right away, because they may be more powerful than we can handle. So the whole pow kaplow, maybe hold off on that.
Sure, but I mean, don't stop me when it starts charging at you.
That is a different story, but it would probably be in our best interest to leave. Would rather not take on a battle we cannot win.
I can beat them. I'm sure I can.
We are literally dealing with eldritch horrors. I'm not sure if that's going to be an option.
Only one way to find out. Am I right? Yeah? Yeah? Right? Doc?
Alright, I'm going to go to my side of the tent now. Good night, Rooster.
Alright, good night. What are you doing over there?
I'm going to bed. Getting ready for bed.
No, what do you mean getting ready for bed? You just opened up... What did you open up? Is that an energy drink?
Monster, coffee flavor.
Disgusting. Why would you do... You're going to bed! What are you doing?
I'm getting a drink before bed.
No. I don't know if you understand. I thought you were a doctor, but I mean, I thought you would know that those don't make you go to bed. What are you...
They make me feel better. And then I can
No,
go to sleep.
I may not know much. I may not know much, but I don't think that's right.
I can still make these decisions for myself. I am an adult.
Look, I don't know how many of those you've had today, but you're gonna end up hurting yourself that way.
I'll be alright. I've been watching my caffeine consumption closely.
You have?
Yes.
I don't believe that.
I might be having a lot, but that doesn't mean I'm not keeping track of how much I'm having.
No, I think that's a problem. You have an energy drink problem. You have a caffeine problem.
I do not.
Yes, you do.
Everyone's been saying this since I broke the coffee machine at 3 a.m., but it doesn't mean I have a problem.
Yes, it does.
I can quit whenever I want to, I just don't want to.
That's very Are you hearing what you're saying?
Yes.
Do you get the words that are coming out of your mouth right now?
I'm just going to go to bed now. Good night, Rooster.
Good night, Doc.
Rooster.
Oh, good morning, Dr. Pinnacle. How are you doing today?
Not good. Where the hell are my energy drinks?
What energy drinks?
The ones I packed for the trip.
Oh, the ones that were in that bag? Right there?
Yes, the cooling bag.
Ah, see, you know what's funny about that?
Nothing.
You do have a problem, and I did a really fun thing last night when you went to bed.
What the hell did you do?
Okay, now don't get mad at me.
I'm already very mad at you.
Just shush. Just let me tell you, I took every single energy drink in that bag because you have a problem, and I walked down to the river that's a little bit of ways from here, and I dumped them all in the river.
I'm going to kill you.
No, you should be saying thank you.
Why the hell would I say thank you?
You have a problem, and I'm trying to help you.
You're not helping me. You're just taking my stuff. You're gonna pay me back for this. I'm going.
You're going?
I'm
going where?
Goodbye, Rooster. I am going to get this taken care of.
Didn't you say that there's, like, monsters or things or whatever in the forest? Hey, you can't go out there alone.
Well, I wouldn't have to if you didn't throw away my energy drinks.
Where are you going? What are you gonna do about it? There are no energy drinks in the forest. What, are you gonna just walk up to a tree and knock on the wood? Hi, I would like an energy drink, please.
Goodbye, Rooster. That Rooster. I can't believe they were hired for this job. They're so incompetent at throwing out my energy drinks. They should know better. Gotta figure this out. I gotta get some somehow. God. How could they? Let's get this figured out.
Oh, God. Look, I did what I think was the right thing. I mean, I know that if I had a problem and someone dumped things out in the river nearby while I was asleep, is them wanting to help me? Maybe that wasn't the best thing to do. Shit. Okay. Well, maybe I should go after them. The fuck was that? Ah, fuck. Oh, shit. Holy shit! Oh my god, that's huge! Holy shit, what the fuck is that? Oh man, that's the biggest cryptid I've seen in a while. Holy shit, that thing's fast. Shit, okay. Okay. Is that... Oh my god, Pinnacle! Pinnacle, are you okay?
Fine. Well, thanks to you, I found energy drinks.
Oh, hold on. You found energy drinks?
I have a stash in this
Here.
case. Yes.
In the woods?
Yes.
Why would you have a stash in the woods?
In case someone like you decides to be some sort of smart guy and throw out my energy drinks. I'll never forgive you for this.
This either implies that this has happened before, or you were expecting this.
Both.
Look, we can't be out here. There's a thing running around. There's this monster. It's big. It's the biggest cryptid I've seen in a long time. Really fast, though. We have to get out of here.
Alright, let's go.
Are you bringing those energy drinks with you?
Of course. I didn't come out here for nothing.
No! No!
Yes.
No, you have a problem. You need to stop drinking those.
Is that really what's most important?
Do you want me to
right
dump
now?
them in the river again?
Do you want me to kill you?
You won't actually kill me. What are you gonna do? Go back to
trying.
the base and be like, oh no, I killed Rooster. Oops, my bad. Hey.
I got
Be careful
your
with
gun
that
now,
thing.
and I can shoot you with it. Oh, it was this giant cryptid, the biggest cryptid I've seen in a long time. I have acid. You get rid of the body. They'll never know. Don't ever touch my energy drinks again.
You suck. You know that, right? Hey. All right. I got it.
That's a warning
got
shot.
it.
The next one won't miss. Don't touch my energy drinks ever again.
Won't touch your stupid energy drinks anymore. Just take care of your problem.
Sure. That wasn't so hard, was it? I'm keeping this for the rest of the ride.
No, you are not. Give me my gun back.
Not until I know that you're not going to take my energy drinks again.
I won't.
Give it back at the base. Let's go. There's a monster. We want to go.
Hey, did you see the monster by any chance?
Not sure. I was pretty focused.
Wow. Well, hopefully for us we'll never see that thing again.
I hope so, for both our sakes.
The descriptions accurately match old writings of monstrous creatures in much older books, but the unknown traveler didn't have access to these, as the older manuscripts were only discovered and translated after the book was published. The only way to solve this mystery is to ask the man or woman themselves, and as whoever wrote the book is either dead or unwilling to come forward, we may never know the answer.
Doctor, this is the second time you've gone off script.
What?
Are you alright?
I mean, I don't see why I wouldn't be. I don't even... I was reading something?
Dr. Dusk, I have been working under you for at least a couple of years now. I know when you're acting stranger than usual. Is everything okay?
Yeah, no, let's just finish. It's all good. It's all fine.
That's true. We are basically done.
The paranormal is to be understood, not to be feared.
This is true. Though I suppose it is a little scary to imagine a brawl in the city streets between two slightly misunderstood necromancers, even though one of them is basically an incel, which is, as we know, the scariest monster of them all.
Yes, I mean, zombies or necromancers? My favorite ethical dilemma. After all, who's the monster, really, at that point? Is it the person bringing them back from the dead? You could say that they're just doing a service. They're just furthering our perceptions of what happens after death, and that the zombies are the real monster, the creation. It's not the fault of the scientists that the creation goes so astray, but at the same time,
At the same time, someone who would argue that has probably not read a book by Mary Shelley.
I mean, yes. Most likely.
Doctor, have you considered raising the dead?
You can't do it with just chemicals alone.
This is fair enough.
I haven't tried, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Of course. So that would be silly.
I'm certain that the next time you invite me to your basement, that all will be well.
Yes, definitely. 100%. Don't worry about it.
On to the next file, then.
On to the next file.
Hey everyone, I'm Christina of Agents of Damned, and I am going to be reading I Don't Swim in the Ocean Anymore by Brian Sella. The sky was reaching its darkest blue, and I watched it as I peeled away my clothes. The water rippled and dropped right off into the deep blackness. Rocks and shells crunched softly under my bare feet, prodding and poking at my soles. I let the wind sway me and looked up again at where the stars began to dot themselves. I reached my arms up, closed my eyes, and held my breath before jumping in. The water enveloped my body and caressed me lovingly as I plunged in. When I came back to the surface, I leaned back to be carried away by the waves. Peace strangely settled on me. The water was always a safe haven, where I would authentically be myself. The moon lit up my body, and my hair turned blood red from the wetness. I rode the waves, feeling the weightlessness that only the ocean can bring. A bubbling disturbance in the water shook me, and I swam as fast as I could in a panic until I was able to steady myself enough to study whatever it was. The pockets of air were increasing in size, going from pebbles to boulders. A blue glow was emerging, and 3 large figures erupted from the waves. I stared in awe and horror, unable to process what was happening. Womanly faces stared down at me. Their pupils were shimmering slightly and moved with the clunking slowness of a snail, watching my body below them. Each giantess let their vocal cords do their work, a booming note escaping each of them, harmonizing together. They were easily 3 times my size and circled me. I looked for a way to escape, but I was far from the shore. It seemed vastness was the only option with no recollection of direction. Their singing flooded my ears, and I became entranced. There was nothing I could do besides study them. Their bodies were a deep blue, blending in with the depths of the ocean, but shimmered in familiar patterns that dotted their scaly skin. Their eyes were large and took up a large portion of their face, but weren't so big they couldn't be mistaken as human. They lacked pronounced noses, but the 2 slits of gill-like nostrils sold the illusion. Smiling at me, their broad shoulders and shapely chests rose and fell with each chord. Rain poured from the sky suddenly, but I didn't care. I watched as the droplets slipped off their stringy layered hair, my heart pounding, my body relaxing back into the water's embrace. Their webbed hands covered my shoulders, while one embraced my face, leaning in and kissing away my breath as they submerged me. I heard thunder crash, then get muffled by the water covering my face. For a while, there was nothing. No fear, with my eyes wide, watching as they pushed down, their faces disappearing as we reached deeper. Pressure snapped me back into a sober state. The panic set in. I thrashed against them, but they gripped me tightly. I felt their bony fingers push into my flesh, and I felt my triceps separate from my elbow. I couldn't see anything besides their glowing patterns dancing in the water, turning from blue to red. I shook myself off, shock making the pain bearable. I struggled to swim up. There was no telling how deep they had brought me as they tried to grip at me. A second before I felt myself slipping from consciousness, I reached the shimmering of moonlight. Gasping in big gulps of air as the warm rain washed over me, I saw the waves crashing towards me, building up their height. I felt hope that it would push me back to shore. I was too exhausted to swim and was struggling to keep myself up. Noticing blood coming from my elbow, I screamed. The sudden pain hit me. The rest of my arm was missing, and the salt water was lapping over my wound. I had never experienced greater pain. Tears streamed down my face as I shrieked. Maybe it was the pain or the fear of never getting back alive. I was pushed further, getting drowned out with each wave. A figure emerged again, her glowing dots shimmering towards me. I tried my best to move forward, but without my arm, I could only propel myself forward a few feet. She was fast. I hadn't seen them use this speed before. She was able to claw at the water and bring herself towards me. She looked less human, less recognizable. Terror filled my chest and water rushed into my lungs as I tried to get away. She was gaining on me. Closer. Closer. Her large fin pushed her forward. I heard her voice gurgle. She shrieked as lightning lit up the sky with fury. It blinded her enough for me to cling to a rock, the closest thing I could climb. I coughed, doing my best to lift myself up. Thinking I could pull myself with my bicep, I pushed it against the rock, but slipped. The edge cut into my open wound. My tears burned hotter. I begged anyone listening to let me live. The waves crashed against me harder. There was nothing I could do but beg and cry, fighting my way up to the top of the rock. I lay on my back, not caring about the sharpness stabbing into my body. I noticed smaller cuts along my arms and legs where their fingers had been embedded. I breathed out a sigh of relief, my body getting cold from the wind. I looked around me, watching the siren hiss with her gaping jaw and leave as the sun started to rise. I saw the water was more shallow near the cluster of rocks I was on, and the beach was not far behind me. I walked towards it, stepping carefully and quickly getting back to the soft sand. I picked up my clothes and put them on. I didn't care that they were soaked. I was exhausted and needed sleep. I managed to get an early jogger's attention, though I imagine bleeding all over was a good indication of needing help. He took me to the hospital, words barely exchanged as he sped towards it. I had lost a lot of blood and was lucky to get there in time. I still haven't told anyone what happened. Would anyone believe a girl who talked about a giant woman hunting her and biting her arm off? I wouldn't. But I still remember it. The way they presented their teeth, their thin, stretched faces. The dark green of their seaweed hair shrouded indistinguishable from a human in the darkness. I don't go to the ocean anymore.
Well, it appears we only have one more for the night. Doctor? Doctor, are you alright?
I'm gonna need a moment.
Okay. I'll just lead into the next story then. This is also a historical piece. It's hard to tell where this legend truly began, but the tales of La Llorona have been rather well renowned, so I believe it's time we get right to it then.
This story is one that I heard in my childhood, and one that has stuck with me since then. Many Hispanic and Latinx folks will recognize this one, but the story varies from person to person. This is just the first version I ever heard of this particular Mexican myth, and I want to share it with you all. There was once a beautiful young woman named Maria from a small village. Everywhere she went, people stopped to look her way. The men would fawn over her, all wanting her hand in marriage, while the women were jealous. They could never be as pretty as Maria. Many would say that they would feel uncomfortable with all of that attention. But not Maria. She enjoyed being in the spotlight all the time. It brought her such pride and joy to know that she was always the talk of the town, and she would do anything to keep things that way. One day, there was a town newcomer. Let's call him Jose. Jose was strong, handsome, but most importantly, he had a heart of gold. It didn't take long for him to settle into his new life as a ranchero, and making friends with all of the locals was very easy. The women of the village swooned, falling for him, but the one who fell the hardest was Maria. All the other men in the village were fun, but they never truly interested her. Not like Jose, at least. And Jose felt the same about Maria. It was love at first sight. It didn't take long for the both of them to be wed and to start a happy new life together. Fast forward a few years, and Maria and Jose have started to grow themselves a happy little familia. They had beautiful children, a boy and a girl. The sweetest kids that you'll ever meet. Maria would stay home and take care of the children, while Jose would go out to work on the ranch every day. He would come back home tired, but he was never too tired to greet his children with a big hug every single night. He would ask, "¿Cómo están mis hijos preciosos hoy? How are my children today? I missed you so much." Jose loved his kids very much, and he would do anything for them. And his wife, too. After greeting the kids, he would then go over to kiss Maria, and that's how things were. Truly, it was a beautiful story, and anyone would dream of a life like this. But even though it was a perfect life, it wasn't as pristine as you think. There was a storm brewing louder and louder every day. Something ticked in Maria's mind. She watched her husband come back home every day, and she would watch him greet the children before he greets her. She would watch him bring them gifts and ask them about their day before bringing anything back for her or asking how she was doing. He gave them a big warm hug first before thinking of kissing her hello. How could he? Didn't he care about her? Wasn't she the most important person in the world for him? She used to be, but since the children came, she found herself in third place. Never once has she felt this way before. Like everything she wanted was being pulled away from her grasp. Anger and disgust built up in her chest, and every passing day it grew more and more. She was jealous. One night, she thought enough was enough. She confronted Jose about this, asking him why he thought it was okay to be this cruel to her. Her despairing cries only made him confused, though. Even though Maria thought she was being crystal clear with him. He felt he was a good father and a good husband, but Maria begged to differ. Eventually, he felt it would have been better to talk it through in the morning, and he decided to spend the night out, away from this sudden home drama. He kissed his children goodbye on their foreheads, and even gave Maria a hug, even though he knew that she was upset at him for who knows what exactly. And with that, he left. Maria, not understanding why this was happening to her, snapped. She made a connection in her head. My husband stopped caring for me when the children came. So what if the children were no more? I would have all of his love again. With an evil plan conducted in her mind, she searched for the children in the house. Finding them and grabbing them by their wrists, she dragged them out into the cold, dark night. Her grip on them was strong, and the children protested, crying that they were cold and they wanted to go back home, begging for their papa. Maria refused to listen, though. In the distance, there was a river. It was an essential part of the village, providing fresh water for the ranches and the people, but at nighttime it was dangerous with its freezing temperatures and rapid waters. Maria pulled her children up to the very edge of the river, and with no hesitation pushed them headfirst into the water. They screamed as the waters engulfed them, sending them down towards the town. They tried their best to keep themselves afloat, but the more they struggled, the faster they sunk. Eventually the kids were gone, having succumbed to the waters, breathing their last breaths. Maria watched the entire time, the rage in her body soon turning into realization. Ay Dios, what have I done? She felt herself start to panic. She wanted her husband to love her again, but how could he when she allowed her kids to drown? She had to get them back. Maria then started running, trying to catch up to where she last saw the waters take her children. She started to weep and cry, Ay, mis hijos, my children, where are my children? She cried louder, Ay, mis hijos! She wept and cried, desperately looking for her children, but all she saw was rushing water in the dark of night. Maria ran and ran, blinded by her own grief. She never noticed the rocks ahead. Maria cried, Ay, mis hijos! And then she tripped. The last thing she saw before everything went completely dark was the rock that she was diving towards headfirst. After that, nothing. Maria died on the side of the river. Really, it's a tragedy. She died regretting all of her mistakes, wishing she hadn't done the unthinkable. Her children were dead because of her, and all she could do in her final moments was cry for them. Maria and her kids may be gone, but some say they can hear a woman's weeping at night near the river. This weeping woman cries out, Ay, mis hijos! But there doesn't seem to be anyone actually by the river. Some people will claim to see a woman in a white, ragged dress walking the riverside, but the moment she spots them, she disappears, followed by distant sobbing. Now people avoid the river at night for fear of running into the school. Children are told to not go near the river unless they want the spirit to catch them and throw them into the river too, to suffer the same fate as the children who lost their lives at that same river many, many years ago, at the hands of La Llorona. I guess you could say Maria wasn't lying when she said she'd do anything to remain the talk of the town.
What follows are excerpts from the Book of the Unknown Traveler.
Doctor,
and their experience with forgotten old gods.
What are you talking about?
The first one is Derevo, the minor goddess of plants. You feel a rumble, as if something large is dragging its way toward you. But you are standing in a dense forest. Surely whatever this is cannot see you. But as you look, trees shudder and shake, being brushed aside by something. Something with 4 stubby legs, each the size of a full-grown oak tree. The legs appear to be made of wood, and they cannot bend, meaning the creature must painstakingly drag itself with its front 2 legs, the back 2 ineffectually pushing in an attempt to propel this thing forward. The main body of this thing looks like a bird's nest, made up of smaller trees that resemble sticks next to the creature, large swaths of moss and mud. You let out the breath you didn't know you were holding and inhale, only to retch at the smell coming off this thing. It smells like death. Literally. It smells of dying forests and decomposing corpses and slow disintegration to a miserable end. It has no head, but 2 trees protrude outward from the body like elephant tusks, except more haphazard and broken. Set in between the 2 tusks is the thing's face, a gaping maw with thousands of increasingly smaller sticks for teeth and multiple glittering red spots of various sizes, ranging from as big as your clenched fist to a speck of light. You watch in awe as the thing slowly, achingly moves forward, and see the little lights blink in and out. And that's when you realize those are the thing's eyes. Suddenly, the creature pushes itself to stand only on its back 2 legs and lets out a mighty growl, one that vibrates deep inside your chest. The growl could sound intimidating if it wasn't filled with so much pain.
Doctor, please.
After a moment, the thing drops back down with a loud thud and continues on its way, heading to an unknown destination. This is what follows the excerpt of the minor god of trinkets and jewelry, Yeshiv.
It hurts.
As you sit down to rest, feet tired from walking all over these abandoned ruins, you lean back against a wall and watch as a little bug makes its way across the fallen boulder next to you. It's a very shiny bug, you notice. It glints in the dying sunlight like gold. In fact, you notice with a start, the bug on the rock is not a bug at all. Rather, it is a lump of what looks like gold intertwined with silver, with 6 stringy little bits coming off the sides that it uses as legs. Fascinated, you see the tiny creature make its way to the far side of the boulder, where it meets up with another creature, this one now an amalgamation of diamonds stuck together by a white metal. And then another creature scuttles up the rock. And another one. And another one. All are equally shiny and made of precious gemstones and metals, and you find to your increasing horror there are many, many more than you thought. You can't even begin to guess the number of little shiny things coming up from cracks and passageways, but it is in the thousands. One crawls over your arm on its way to its destination, and you shriek as its cold legs flutter across your bare forearm. You fling it away with a quick shake of your arm, and it easily flies off of you, landing several feet to your right. It wasn't heavy, but as soon as it touched you, you felt lethargic and exhausted. All you want to do is go to sleep and dream of jewels and gold. Oh God. You jerk awake at sunrise with a start to come face to face with a creature. It looks like a large lump of very sparkly oatmeal, but as shock ices your veins and stifles the scream in your throat, you see movement along the creature and through it.
Doctor, please.
You gradually realize that the smaller creatures you saw earlier are this new one shifting in front of you, that they are the tiny pieces that fit together to make up this new creature. You recover from shock enough to gain the ability to move and propel yourself to the left, sprawling all over the ground as your scream finally gets released into the air. You scramble backwards as the creature sweeps upward in a wave, recoiling from you in your sudden movement and your sudden sound. You scramble to your feet and start to run, but soon you hear a loud rustling sound coming from behind you.
Turning to look, you see the creature moving quickly behind you, all the tiny ones shifting as one to create a fast-moving wave that is rapidly catching up to you. You see a large hole for a mouth, and 2 beady black dots for eyes. You run as fast as you can, but it's useless. You can't escape this thing. A long amoeba-like appendage wraps around your foot, pulling you to the ground. You face-plant into the earth, on instinct twisting to face the creature as it pulls you towards its open maw. You pray to whatever god will deign to save you, and think of all you left behind as you are dragged into the black maw and swallowed. You did not expect to awake again, but here you are, opening your eyes. That's about all you can do at the moment, as you're so exhausted and drained. Whatever that thing was, it took all your energy and left you there on the forest floor. Praying again to the same god or goddess that protected you the last time that the first beast, the tree one, doesn't come back and squash you. You start to fall asleep again. As you pass out, you dimly notice that everything metallic and shiny on your person has disappeared. The last and final excerpt is of the minor goddess of blood, Hemotimor. You stare at the dark tunnel, feeling as though you teeter on the edge of a cliff. Common sense pulls you back, reminding you of your other encounters with that which lurks in the dark of entities unknowable. Surely, to explore is to invite disaster upon you again, and luck may not spare you a third time. But... the cool air drifting out from the tunnel laps at your skin, silkily stroking you, beckoning you to come. Despite everything, you're curious. Exploring is in your bones, inextricably anchored into your weak mortal flesh, and you can no more turn back than you could rip out your sternum. You light your lantern and step down into the wide maw of the entrance to the tunnel. You place your right hand on the tunnel wall, reassured by its cool strength and firmness. Your lantern casts wicked shadows that curve around you, reaching out to grasp at your hair, your clothes, but the light protects you. You are wrapped in a small circle of light, and this provides an illusion of security. Perhaps you are being paranoid. Perhaps there is nothing here but you and the dust of the people who made these twisting tunnels through mountains of rock. The tunnel opens a bit, and you find yourself in a small cavern with pictures carved into the wall, winding patterns with intricate details curling around the room. Entranced, you drag your figure, which is just wide enough to fit between the ridges of a random track, following its swoops and twirls along the wall. Wide-eyed, you are so engrossed by your finger that you almost miss it. That sound. Not a squelch, gurgle, or splat, but some horrible combination of the three. Oddly, it reminds you of water dripping off a spout. You turn to face the sound, reckoning it comes from the tunnel that leads on. You wait, breathless, twitching. But you hear nothing. The silence tears at your ears, taunting you, but it will give you no rest. You hear nothing. Your fingers grasp desperately at the wall, scratching at it, searching for something to hold onto, but the wall is silent and unyielding, and nothing breaks the stifling silence, smothering you. You hear nothing. You feel your body start to shake and a tiny moan escapes you. You've met the unknowable, seen the incomprehensible twice before, and you just know that something is out there, lurking in the dark, something that can kill you faster than you can think, but you don't know where it is. Knees knocking, Tears brewing in your eyes, you begin to back up. Maybe you can still live. Maybe you can escape. You look upwards, prepared to beg the deity who saved you last time for another chance. And immediately freeze in place. Oh God, the mouths. The sucking leech-like mouths emerging from a body of congealed blood, sucking with amorphous evil. The grotesque shapes, the obscene squelching. It's all too much, and all you can do is weep at the vision of intense violence that spells your imminent demise. You try to run. It's all you can do. Flee from it. But it's never that easy. You hear splashing, crushing, crunching sound as a sentient concoction of blood, bone, and organs in all the wrong places chases after you. You aren't using your blood properly, after all. You don't deserve it. It wants it. Give your blood to it. Okay. What did I just read? What is this?
It appears I've got what I've come here for.
What? Who the fuck said that?
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank me for what? What the fuck? Hello? Hey, are you alright?
What did you do?
The folder on my desk. I read out the folder on my desk because it was the story. It was the last story, right?
We were supposed to call it. Why would a field agent report make it to your desk, Doctor?
Oh shit. I don't even file this shit. No, okay. What even?
Give me a second.
What even is this then? What is this? It's a field report. It looks like one.
Okay. I think I can see clearly again.
Oh. It's a little... Never mind. It's good. As long as the mask is working.
It's fine. I've been through worse. Are you okay?
Yes. I think this time for real. Actually.
Glad whatever came over you is past.
Did you hear a... Never mind. Oh.
Then I was hardly conscious for a moment there.
Don't worry about it. Weird things were happening. It's good. It's fine. Oh.
Doctor, if it's of import...
Huh.
Look.
This report says in big red letters, do not read.
Great. So what's the likelihood that this project's going to be discontinued next year?
Statistically significant.
Well, since we're already fucked. Now, Doctor, I don't know what you just did, but everything inside of me is screaming to report this, but if you have a lead.
I heard a voice. Someone saying he got what he came for?
Well, that's comforting.
Why would he want an old story?
Do you think it was three-lettered organizations that need not be named, lest we turn on cameras?
No, this was something more powerful in the paranormal sense.
Great.
Anyway.
Fantastic. Look, you've injected enough chemicals into me that I would hardly call our working relationship friendship.
We have a chemical bond.
I'm tempted to file this under a direct report just for that.
No. Continue.
Look, whatever that was, came after you. Could have gone after anyone else, but it went after you. So I suppose, as your direct subordinate, my job would be to make sure it doesn't happen again.
We need to find whatever this is. And figure out why he wanted his story.
Can you even make sense of it outside of going into yet another horror trip? I would like to know what each of my orifices do.
I think I can. It's just words on a page.
Great.
There are ways to make it safe. There are ways to take away the power.
Fantastic. And I suppose we get right on that.
We've got a lead. There's always a clue.
Fuck. Guess this is what I'm doing for my Halloween.
Aww. I'll buy candy for you if you want.
Would you? I think I lost my sense of taste.
Everyone can taste chocolate. It's good for you.
It'll hopefully spark it back. I don't know what you fucking did.
I don't either.
That's beyond comforting. So do we just cut this now? Any attempt at segueing into a regular chipper finale is pretty much shot.
Yeah. Hopefully they don't get also possessed by hearing me read the story.
I didn't even fucking consider that. Great. Awesome. Cool.
Well, if you're not being currently possessed by some sort of evil demon who apparently wants a story for some reason, have fun!
Please have a more pleasant holiday than we are about to.
Aw, extra hours at the office is always fun.
I am so tempted to call you out on so many things right now. I have a very short fuse at the moment.
Aw, you made a list? That's so good. It's adorable of you.
Yes, and it's a list I could easily photocopy or email to a certain secretary.
Listen, that goes both ways. That goes both ways, you hear me? I have blackmail on you too.
This is mutually assured destruction, Doctor.
I hate it.
Now are you going to let me help you find an eldritch horror? Or am I going to get involved into your workplace romantic life?
Cruel, but effective. Let's go.
Yeah, very. I suppose that is my job around here.
Gonna stay right here till midnight. We'll be out